Hi, hello, and welcome to Hanging by a Thread. My name is Ailsa, and this is my little corner of the internet where I talk about all things knitting. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you 9 of my favorite Canadian knitting YouTubers, podcasters, knitters, makers, content creators, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to be sharing 9 of my favorite. Hopefully, this will introduce you to some new faces, some new makers, and you'll enjoy each of these folks as much as I do. Before I jump in to sharing all about these fantastic creators, I want to give a little acknowledgement. So this video will be going out on July 1st, which is Canada Day. But I wanted to acknowledge that I'm not unaware of the problematic nature of Canada Day in that it's celebrating the colonial project ongoing that is Canada, what we now call Canada, and that this is not necessarily a day for celebration. I often think about Canada Day as a day for reflection and also a day for action. I tend to give a donation to an Indigenous organization or charitable foundation or what have you on Canada Day, and I will maybe share some links to some organizations that I have supported in the past. And I also want to give an acknowledgement of the land that I'm coming to you on. I don't think I've done that before on this channel, which is on me. But I thought, given that I was doing this little disclaimer at the beginning of this video, it would be a good time to make that acknowledgement and share the land that I'm on. So I'm coming to you from southwestern Ontario and in the area that we now call Toronto. And this land is the home of the following Indigenous peoples. It is the Wendat, the Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Attawandaron, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and the Métis Nation. And this place that I live is still home to so many Indigenous folks and communities. It is a site of ongoing colonization, but also ongoing beauty and resistance. There are many great organizations doing really cool work in Toronto and the surrounding areas. If you're also in Toronto, I encourage you to get to know some of your local Indigenous businesses, your Indigenous and Native community groups. Just find out what they're doing. Get familiar with the organizations in your area. If you're not in the same area as me and you're curious about the land that you are on, you can head to nativeland.ca and you can learn a little bit more about the nations who call the land that you're on home. So I hope this video comes across in the spirit that it's intended. I do hope that you'll check out some of the resources I put down below. But for now, let's get into sharing some great Canadian YouTubers. I also want to say that the format that I'm doing for this video is inspired by one of the YouTubers on my list, Ali of Ali Makes Everything. She has done a couple of podcast roundup videos, and I really liked how she did it. Mine is not exactly a one-to-one replication of her style, but I'm kind of following loosely what she did. So she talks a little bit about kind of like the vibe of the person, their style, and she inserts a little clip of the person. I'm going to try and do the clip. I'm not entirely sure of the technical aspect of that, but I'm going to give it a go. But yeah, so I'm going to be talking to you about who this person is, my kind of like summary of what you get when you watch this person. I'll give you a little bit about the stats of like their audience size, how long they've been on YouTube, the style of things that they make. And I'm also going to share a sample episode that I think you should check out to get a little bit more of a feel for who this person is. First up, we have one of my must-watch immediately that she uploads an episode. I always put it on favorite YouTubers, and that is Knitted by Whitney.
Today, I'm looking at my top 20 bra-friendly size-inclusive tank tops. I'm really excited to do this particular list because this is something that I'm always looking for when I look at summer patterns. I always need to wear a bra for support, and sometimes it's really hard when I see all kinds of really cute tank top patterns, but they have these skinny little I-cord straps, or they come too low in the back, and I just know that I won't be able to wear that without my bra showing.
So Whitney is based in Nova Scotia, and she is a plus size knitter who regularly puts out videos of both regular podcast episodes, but also really cool, extensive pattern roundups of size inclusive patterns. I love that she is really an advocate for plus size knitters and for size inclusive um, knitting patterns. She really puts a lot of focus on that. And I particularly appreciate that she's been very, very honest in her assessment of patterns that she's been making, that even though they are technically size inclusive, when the work hasn't been there to actually make the pattern fit a larger body, she's been very honest about giving feedback on projects that haven't worked out, when designs haven't met the standards that we'd want to see. So even though they're technically meeting the size dimension, they haven't been graded in such a way that it's actually going to be flattering. I don't like that word, that it's actually going to be wearable and a comparable garment for a larger size knitter. So she does fabulous advocacy on that front and awareness building, but also she's just a really charming, funny, great person to hang out with when you're working on your projects. She has been on YouTube for about 3 years, and there is a large back catalogue of really great videos to lose yourself in if you haven't watched them all already. And she has around 7,000 subscribers, 7,500 subscribers. I would say the vibe of Whitney's videos is it feels like sitting down with your best friend to just chat about all things knitting. It's so warm and engaging, and yeah, just like it just feels like a really comfortable experience that you're just having a really um, natural chat with someone about their knitting and their process. Um, she also shares a lot about books. She is a librarian and has great book taste and great book opinions in her podcast too. So if you are one of the many knitters who is also a bookworm, great on that front too. I just find her presence really sweet and genuine, really honest. I just really enjoy spending time with her. I'll also say one of the other things that I appreciate about Whitney is that she often highlights designers who are maybe a little bit smaller. She isn't making the same old big names like, Petite Knit or My Favorite Things Knitwear. She is highlighting designers who maybe don't have as much hype, but really deserve it. I've found lots of designs and pattern designers through Whitney's either what she's been making or her pattern roundup videos. And she is just really doing the work on uplifting these smaller designers. So yeah, I really appreciate her channel and I really enjoy watching it. In terms of her style, I would say Whitney has quite a feminine, colorful, fun style. She isn't wearing a lot of boring neutrals. She has a lot of things that have like kind of embellishment. Like she has an array of souffle tops, which is a pattern from Laura Penrose, which has this like gorgeous ruffle. She has them in different colors and different fibers. So she has this like feminine frilly top. She wears really kind of like, yeah, kind of like romantic, flirty kind of vibe in a kind of, yeah, so it has this very like feminine, romantic, flirty vibe in lots of fun colors, lots of really beautiful yarn. I really love her outfits. Like I find her style and how she puts outfits together really inspiring. Her Me Made May videos were really, really fun for that reason, to see how she was wearing her knitwear and styling it with different pieces. She does also do a little bit of sewing as well. That was part of Me Made May too for her. So I loved seeing how she was incorporating sewn and knit pieces together. So definitely those were a lot of fun, those videos, if you're the kind of person who likes seeing how people actually wear and style their finished objects. She's great for that. The sample episode that I'm going to point you towards is one of her pattern roundup videos, just because I feel like this is what she's really known for, that what she's such a powerhouse when it comes to her channel. So I'm going to point you to one of her recent roundup videos, which is top 20 size inclusive tank tops. It will give you a flavor of how her pattern roundup videos go, but also an introduction to who Whitney is as a creator. The next podcast I'm going to recommend to you is Ali Makes Everything.
So today I was thinking that instead of doing like a typical podcast format, I would talk a bit about making mock-ups for our knits, because this is a thing that I've kind of alluded to in some of my episodes, and I don't feel like this is a thing that I really see people talk about. But in terms of like one of the things of this channel being the cost of knitting, I think that mock-ups are a really great way to not waste money on projects that are going to disappoint you. Like, I think that there are definitely things in knitting that like you're gonna have to figure out the hard way, and like you're gonna have projects sometimes that don't turn out how you thought. But I think that a lot of the time, color does not need to be one of the things that's a problem. So I thought today,
Ali is a knitter based in Ontario, and she has around 9,000 subscribers, and she's been on YouTube for about 1.5 years. I would say that Ali is this just really adventurous knitter who shares really great insights into her process. I really enjoy watching her videos in terms of just seeing someone do things that I haven't done before, especially from someone who's such a new knitter. I've been knitting a really long time, since I was a kid, and I think sometimes I can be a little bit stuck in my ways, whereas Ali, I think in her first year of knitting, she had tackled things like intarsia, for example. So she's just really great about being bold and being adventurous in her knitting, and I find that very inspiring. The vibe, I would say, of Ali's videos, it's like hanging out with your cool art school friend who encourages you to try new things and to maybe style things a bit differently or wear bolder colors. Yeah, it's just like having that person who is a little bit more bold than you are, maybe, or than I am anyway, and just inspiring you with kind of their energy and their excitement about trying new things and doing new things. Because she is professionally a graphic designer, she also has some really great insights into color and design. There's an episode that she has where she posts about mocking up knits, which is actually going to be my sample episode. Sorry, I jumped ahead a little bit there, where she talks about how she uses software to kind of mock up the colors of how things are going to work together. And I found that so interesting and so useful. So I will definitely put a clip of that in here if I can figure that out, and also link it down below for you to go check out. She also has, again, a very kind of polished and aesthetically pleasing filming style. She has this beautiful setup in front of like walls of books. It's so lovely. Just like a very visually appealing filming style and setup, and yeah, everything it's just pleasant to be immersed in. She posts every other week on a pretty regular schedule on Saturdays. With a mixture of kind of more straightforward podcast videos and then planning episodes, recommendations. Yeah, kind of a mix of things. So you get a lot of different kind of things, but often just your kind of more standard podcast format. One of the other things I really like about Ali's channel is she puts a big focus on how much she is spending on her knitting and the value she's getting out of her finished objects, including the cost per wear of her finished objects over time. I actually took a really cool tip from one of Ali's videos about using an app called Stylebook to track how often you're wearing your knits. And then you can put in how much you spent on the item, and then you can see your cost per wear over time. So it gives you a really cool insight into how much you're spending on your knitting and how much you're actually wearing it. So anyway, I feel like I've learned a lot from Ali's videos. I've been really inspired by them. So she's definitely up there in one of my favorite knitting podcasters, Canadian or otherwise, frankly. And in terms of Ali's style, I would describe it as bold, modern, and fun. She does knit some of the bigger name designers like your Petite Knits or what have you, but also she has made some designs from less well-known designers. And I'd say that she often makes um, modifications or adjustments or color choices that that are maybe kind of surprising. I'm thinking of she made a Sari Nordland cable pattern in this bright chartreuse green. And it was just such a surprising combination for, cables can feel quite traditional. And then she did it in this really bold, non traditional color. So that's kind of what I think you get from Ali, just like these surprises in style and ways of thinking about style that might just be a little bit different than you're used to. Next, I'm going to recommend to you Knitting with Ev, who is a knitter based in BC. I have a suspicion that she's from Quebec originally, but don't quote me on that. But anyway, at the moment, I know that she is based in BC.
It's been a little bit of a hot minute, and that is simply because I decided to unravel or re-knit my Dagmar sweater. So last time we caught up, I don't remember necessarily where we were at, but this is the old one. This was knit on 4.5 millimeter US 7. And after looking up on Ravelry, and if you watched my Everything I Knit in January or my Knits and Babble episode of January, you'll know that I knit a new one. So this is on US 8, which is 5 millimeters.
She has around 11,000 subscribers, and she's been on YouTube about 2 years. And she shares your more standard podcast episodes, as well as project vlogs and kind of deep dives into the making process of her projects, as well as, because she's a spinner, really in-depth studies into spinning and working with different kind of fibers. I'm not a spinner and I don't watch those videos as much. I kind of dipped into them, but it's not really something that I'm into. But if you are into spinning, that might be something you really, really enjoy from Ev's channel. I would say that the vibe for Ev's channel, it feels like spending time with your knitting bestie while she's deep diving into projects, and like you're knitting along and then she's telling you all about her project and getting really deep into the weeds a bit. This is actually, so Ev is actually one of the creators who got me into watching project vlogs. Before I was kind of like, I don't know what this is or why I would want this, but with Ev, I really, really enjoy them. And I've actually got into other makers or creators' vlogs through watching hers. She just made me realize that it can be such an enjoyable experience to see every stage of the project in real time as you go along. It feels like she just gets the balance really right, where it feels like you're on a knitting date with her, seeing the highs and lows of the project in progress. So I really, really enjoy that. In terms of style, Ev has, I would say, like kind of a more classic style, elevated, timeless pieces. She knits in a lot of kind of more neutral colors, I would say. And she does make a lot of designs from kind of like the bigger pattern designers out there. But really beautiful finished pieces. Really lovely work and really lovely pieces that she's showcasing. I would say the sample episode that I'm going to point you towards is her project vlog on her recently finished Dagmar jacket. There was like some highs and lows in that episode, really in depth on the process of doing kind of the tricky zipper piece that I don't think I'm ever going to make this project, but I still found it very interesting and engaging. So that's the one I'm going to point you towards for Ev. Next up, we have Karlie Paige, a creator based in Alberta.
Okay, let's start with some stats. So, in total, I knit 19 garments for the year of 2024. I did 2 cardigans, 5 pullovers, 1 vest, 5 tees, 2 tanks, and 4 children's sweaters. So the very first thing that I finished in 2024 was the Audrey jacket by Cheryl Mokatari, and this was knit in Gapard Garn Puno color 142 and Gapard Garn Teddy Deer in color 104. And both of those yarns were gifted from Gapard, as this was a test knit for Cheryl. And here is the lovely Audrey jacket. This was knit top down, and it is a drop shoulder construction. You go in later and you do the edging. I believe this was an I-cord bind off for the neck. It is a double knit button band, and then I-cord for the sleeves and the bottom of the body.
She has just like the most aesthetic, beautiful channel where she shows off her knitting, sewing, and yarn dyeing process. Karlie has around 5.6 thousand subscribers on YouTube and has been making videos for about 2.5 years. I find the vibe of Karlie's videos just very chill, relaxing, soothing. There's this like really kind of I don't know how to explain it, but she's just very calm to watch. I feel myself relax as I'm watching her videos. She has a very soft way of speaking. She has a very beautiful aesthetic filming space. Her just the whole vibe is just very, very beautiful. Yeah, I think she has a really distinctive style where she has, I don't know, I'm kind of calling it in my head boho chic. It's like this kind of romantic, slightly bohemian, lots of lace, often kind of muted colors or neutrals, but like stunning and beautiful. Just you see a lot of like really stunning pieces on Karlie's channel. She does show knitting, crochet, and sewing, including some of her own designs. I think she's mostly designed socks and accessories, if I'm not mistaken. But she also makes a wide range of other designers' patterns. She recently launched her own hand-dyed yarn business where she uses natural dyes to dye her yarn, and I just think her yarn looks so amazing. At some point, I am going to get my hands on some, and yeah, it's been really cool seeing her launch that business and venture out into this new world. So that's, if you're in any way interested in natural dyeing or yarn dyeing, that's a really great new aspect of her channel as well. The sample episode I'm going to point you towards for Karlie is her Everything I Knit in 2024 video. I really love Everything I Knit videos as an introduction to a channel. It gives you a really good sense of who the maker is and what they're kind of into. And Karlie was so smart this year in that she split up her garments and her accessory videos. Just very clever to do that when she's quite a prolific maker. So her garment video, I just enjoyed seeing all of her makes, even though I'd seen them before because I had been watching all year. It was good to see her going through them and talking about them. So that is the one I'm going to point you towards in order to introduce you to Karlie. Up next, we have Things by Mel, who comes to you from British Columbia.
I am back with another round of performance reviews. If you are new here, I started doing these performance reviews as a way to assess wearability of my hand knits. So this is an assessment that's done at least 2 or 3 months after I have finished an item to allow myself some time to actually wear it and enjoy it. And at that point, I go back and there are 7 questions I like to ask a garment. And why I do this is, well, with fast fashion, it's real easy to just go online, especially with online shopping, is which I majority of my shopping is done online. Really easy, just go through and look, oh my god, 3 tees for $10. Yeah, put that in. And just start accumulating a lot of clothing. And for me, when there are too many pieces of clothing in my wardrobe, I find it really challenging to create outfits. It's just too many options. And also, colors, fits, styles all over the place. So
She has around 11.8 subscribers and has been on YouTube for around 2 years. She does a really broad range of videos. So your standard podcast episodes, but also pattern comparisons, performance reviews, roundups, and yeah, just lots of different types of video. She gives really detailed insights into her making. I feel like when I'm watching her, I'm getting a really analytical deep dive into the nitty gritty of her making process. She's another podcaster who I find very calming to spend time with. She has such a lovely, soothing way of speaking. Yeah, just again, I don't really know how to explain it other than I find watching her videos very soothing. So if that is something you were looking for, definitely recommend Mel. Yeah, I would say one of the things that I love about her channel, and she hasn't done this in a while, but I do really enjoy her performance review videos where she talks about how her knitwear has been holding up over time. Those videos are my favorites, and so I am going to include that style of video as my recommended episode to you, so you can see a little bit about what I mean. She was actually one of the inspirations for my Well Worn series, which so far is a series of 1, but I am hoping to make more of those videos. So yeah, she was a big inspiration for me wanting to do that type of video, because I just find it so useful to have someone talk about how a project has performed over time. She also has a really great series of videos that are pattern comparisons, where she does kind of spot the difference between several types of patterns. So like spot the difference between these 4 drop shoulder designs or what have you, whatever the category is, which I think is really useful for her to kind of do the legwork of figuring out what are the actual differences, what might make you lean towards one pattern versus another. So yeah, check her out for that. In terms of her style, I'd say she's fairly minimalist with lots of clean lines, kind of a timeless aesthetic. She mostly knits in neutrals, but with some fun pops of color along the way. Yeah, but a very kind of clean, minimalist aesthetic is what I associate with Mel. It is now considerably later in the day. I got interrupted, and so I'm coming back in the evening to wrap up making this video. So apologies if there are any inconsistencies in my position or the lighting. But yeah, let's carry on with talking about some more fabulous Canadian knitting YouTubers. Now, the next person I'm going to talk about is probably the most well-known person on this list, but it felt wrong to do a roundup of Canadian YouTubers and not include this person. So this is Emily from High Fiber Knits, who has the, I guess, most established channel on my list. So she's been on YouTube for about 3 years, and she has 19,500 subscribers.
I keep seeing this very specific sweater come up on my Pinterest, and I've seen at least a half dozen different photos with this sweater in it. I think the same person in it each time, and always kind of like riffing off of the same outfit formula, where it's like a pair of chunky shoes, like a pair of trainers, or a pair of like rubber clogs, a relatively loose fitting or baggy pair of pants that are something like corduroy or denim or some kind of other like cotton canvas material, and then this oversized chunky cable knit sweater, and of course the slick back, because you can't take the ballerina out of the girl, but you can take the girl out of ballet. But in any case, like, I've been doing so much digging, and I can't find who this person is or where this sweater is from, or if it's like commercial or hand knit. Like, I can't find any details about it. All I know is that I can't get the sweater out of my head.
I would say that she is a podcaster, a maker who her kind of unique thing is that she brings a real focus on fashion and style. And I tend to think of her as being really plugged into trends and the world of fashion more broadly outside of just the knitting community, and bring that knowledge and understanding and passion into her making and into her content. So, for example, she is fairly well known, I think, for her knitting trends videos, which she hasn't done in a while, but the older ones are still pretty gold to watch. But also just in terms of how she styles her knits and the kind of aesthetic that she portrays. She's very much tapped into that fashion world in a way that I definitely am not. And so I always find that perspective really interesting, and how she kind of feeds into and how she talks about style in particular and developing your own style. I find that really interesting. She does post a broad range of content, including your more standard podcast episodes, pattern roundups, like I said, these kind of styling videos. She does post a little bit less regularly than she used to at one point in time, but her content is still really good and she is still uploading. So yeah, when she does post, I still find her videos always a great watch and always something I'm really engaged by. I would say her style is oversized, kind of urban, and like maybe like a little bit edgy, like it has some surprise to it, I guess. And she often uses really interesting color choices. So I'm thinking in particular, she made a storm sweater in this like bright, vibrant red orange color. So instead of doing the kind of more expected neutral that the sample of the storm sweater was made in, she went for this really punchy color. The sample episode I'm going to share with you is one from earlier this year called Recreating My Dream Pinterest Sweater. I really enjoyed that episode because Emily walked us through a ready-to-wear piece that she'd seen on a Pinterest model, and then thinking about how she was going to essentially design her own version of that sweater. And I just found the way she was talking about it and thinking about it really engaging. There's been some follow-ups on that project in more recent podcasts, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that finished object shapes up. But yeah, that one was a really great intro to what she's working on in that project. For my next recommendation, I have to give another shout out to Ali from Ali Makes Everything, because I actually found this YouTuber through Ali's most recent podcast recommendations roundup. This is Fire and Fiber, which is Audrey, who is based in Ontario also.
Hello there, Internet. I'm Audrey from Fire and Fiber. I am a social service worker, an avid knitter, an Indigenous mother, and apparently a fledgling YouTube personality. If you've been watching the news lately, you know that now, more than ever, we need to be supporting our small businesses. I have been wanting to make this video for quite a while, and to be honest, this was one of the things that really motivated me to start my YouTube. Today, I'm going to tell you all about my favorite Canadian indie dyers. Now, full disclosure, I am not sponsored by any of these companies. I am totally open to it, but these are things that I've purchased with my own money. Some of these brands, I have not tested out yet, but I still have them in my stash waiting for the right project if I magically develop spare time. Anyways, so
this is a newer knitting podcast. So I think Audrey has only been on YouTube for about 3 months, and she has around 300 subscribers. But she has already some really great episodes up that go beyond the just standard, the standard podcast format. So I find so far, and again, there's less videos to go on here, but my impression so far is just that I find watching her videos very energizing. She's very chatty and high energy, I guess. So something that I really enjoy about what Audrey's been putting out so far is her focus on social justice, size inclusivity, representation. So Audrey is an Anishinaabe woman, and she talks about the realities of being an Indigenous woman, supporting other Indigenous makers. She talks about wanting to support plus size pattern designs over designers who aren't doing as well on size inclusivity. So she's really upfront and honest and passionate about these topics, and I really love that that comes through. I feel like I would listen to her talk about almost any topic, but especially knitting. She has some really interesting insights into knitting as well, obviously. She seems to be primarily a sock knitter, but she does have some garments on the needles as well. And she's just, again, very energizing. So far, my take on her style is that it's very bold and colorful. And I will share the sample episode from her that I want to share today is her roundup of her favorite Canadian indie dyers. There were a lot of dyers that I was vaguely aware of on her list. There were some that I knew, but there were some that I didn't. And it was just a great list, a great roundup, and really enjoyed watching that one and spending time hearing what she had to say about all of these great dyers. Next up, we have Beans and Skeins, which in my head I always say is Beans and Skeins, but I know that's not right. Beans and Skeins, which is Chloe, who is based out in British Columbia.
The first finished object is what I'm wearing. So this is my modified oleander pullover by Audrey Borrego. I knit this in a size 6 and I used 3.5 millimeter needles for the whole thing. It is a bottom-up drop shoulder all over lace pullover, and the original design has a v-neck and long sleeves. I knit this as part of the A Sweater for Summer knit along that my friend Natalie from Knit Chic and I are running until the end of this month, so the end of June. And I wanted to modify this pattern to make it a little bit more summery, hence the short sleeves. And I also wanted to modify it to be a crew neck version because I just think that that is going to be more wearable for me than a v-neck.
This is a more recent channel. I think she's been making videos for about a year. She has approximately 1,000 subscribers. And so mostly Chloe tends to do your kind of standard podcast format. But what I really enjoy about her episodes is the level of depth she'll go into. I really appreciate the variety of knits that she highlights, the variety of projects that she's taking on, and also how she mods patterns. I really, I'm not somebody who often makes a lot of mods, but so I really enjoy seeing someone else take that on. And she talks really clearly about what she's done and how that's worked out. I think she's really very thoughtful and detailed about every aspect of her making. So, she'll talk about the pattern experience, she'll talk about the yarn and how it's behaving, she'll talk about the overall fit. So if you're looking for that really detailed analytical look into somebody's knitting projects, I think Chloe is a great choice and a great creator to watch. I would describe her style as kind of cottagecore-esque. We might be learning here that I don't really know the names for all the different vibes and aesthetics, but that's kind of how it reads to me. There's lots of cables, there's color work, really cozy vibes with really rich, kind of saturated colors. Beautiful color choices. Really love seeing what she has, but that's kind of the vibe I get from her knitwear. The sample episode I'm going to offer up to you is her most recent podcast episode. I think I have recency bias here, but I watched it this week. and I just really enjoyed it. And she was talking about modifying, I've forgotten the name of the t-shirt. One second. Yeah, so she was talking about modifying the oleander sweater. So she took what was a kind of sweater and turned it into more of a t-shirt pattern. And I really enjoyed how she talked through the process of the decisions she made and how that worked out. And she also shows off a really stunning bright green chartreuse sweater as well. So yeah, definitely that episode I just really enjoyed. So that's the one I'm going to share with you. So the final recommendation I'm going to make is pairs well with knitting.
Up on our docket of knitting today is reviewing the autumn knits that I had in the randomized spinner. This was something that I came up with, just a fun, silly idea of picking my new cast on. I find oftentimes when I have such a variety of options, which is lovely to have, it's a luxurious problem for sure, I really get stunted and I have this like decision paralysis that can happen. So I found a limited amount of options, and then having a randomized spinner that just picks a pattern for me is very helpful. It really guides me because this is obviously like curated knits that I would like to knit at some point. This just helps me pick the next one. And I'll bring it up, I'm sure, in some kind of imagery beside me. This is from Autumn, the Jupiter crop. I'm reading them all around my spinner.
This is Jennifer, who is based in Ontario. She's been on YouTube for about 2 years and has around 6.5 thousand. Is that right? Yeah, 6.5 thousand subscribers. Her vibe to me is that she's just this very elegant, cool, well-traveled creator. She also does design some patterns as well, so there's some of that content on her channel, but she combines a lot of different aspects of both travel and knitting content. She has some tutorials on her channel. She had a really great series towards the end of last year, beginning of this year, around her favorite things, including non-knitting things as well. So, her favorite makeup, her favorite non-knitting things to watch while knitting. So I really loved that series around her favorite things. It just gave such an insight into who she is more broadly than just as a knitter. Those were really great videos. And the vibe that I really get is just of hanging out with like a really cool aunt. And I don't mean this in like an age way at all. I think probably Jennifer and I are roughly equivalent in age, but more just that vibe. When you were a kid and there was like the cool older adult who had like, it seemed like they were tapped into things that other adults weren't, and they would like bring you into the secret world of cool stuff. That's how I feel watching Jennifer's channel, but she's just got like some inside track on really cool stuff. So yeah, I find that very enjoyable. I find her really joyful as well. She just has such a presence of really enjoying what she's doing and enjoying what she's making and enjoying the fibers she's using. She tends to work a lot with more rustic fibers or unspun yarns. So again, if that's your thing, you might find that really interesting. And I think her style tends to be kind of more elegant, which is interesting saying with the rustic fibers, but I feel like the silhouettes she chooses and the designs she chooses tend to be like more elegant, more timeless, but with the combination of maybe these more rustic yarns, which is kind of an interesting combination. And I'm not I was really going back and forth on what to share as the sample episode from Jennifer. I do really like those favorites videos. But I think what I'm going to share with you, and she hasn't done this in a while, but I really loved it when she didn't do this. So I'm going to share a bit of an older episode with you where she talks about a finished Moby sweater, but then she spins a picker wheel to pick her next project. And like this lives in my memory rent free as just such a fun and light-hearted and yeah, just joyful way of approaching knitting. So that's really stuck with me as like one of the key episodes, I guess, or key things about Jennifer's channel. So I'm gonna link to that video, but definitely runner-up mention is those favorites videos because I think they're a great introduction to who she is and her vibe, and then you can see if you click with the channel based on those, or of course any other of her videos. All right, those are the 9 Canadian knitting YouTubers that I'm going to share with you today. But obviously, this is not an exhaustive list. I had way more people on my long list. I just honestly ran out of the energy to do the research and writing for the many people I could have shared, and these happen to be my 9 favorites, my 9 current favorites. But there are lots of honorable mentions I could have. I'd love to hear from you if you have any favorite Canadian knitting YouTubers that weren't on this list. Feel free to share the love in the comments. And also, have you watched any of these makers before? Are any of them new to you? Just let me know in the comments if there's anyone you're really excited about, if there's anyone I'm missing that you want to advocate for, and yeah, would love to just keep the bigging up all of these wonderful creators going in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you want to see more content from me in the future, hit that subscribe button too, and then you'll be notified every time I upload something new. And until next time, happy knitting. Bye.